Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Bob's Burgers supposedly returns for season 15 tonight. Now, I have two questions for you. Longtime listeners know the questions, and they've thought about it, and they know that I'm right. If you're new, let me ask you two questions here. One, have you ever seen Bob's Burgers? You haven't. I know you think you have, and I'm going to explain why you think you have, but you haven't. And more interesting to me, have you ever met anyone who has seen Bob's Burgers? You haven't. Isn't that weird? So I looked more into this, and it seems a lot of people are talking about how Bob's Burgers doesn't exist. Some of the theories. Theory one, mass misremembering. Millions of people genuinely believe that they've watched Bob's Burgers, like some of you listening to my voice right now. I get it. I know you're like Johnny Mac's doing a bit. He's crazy. These are false memories. What has happened is people's minds are constructing entire episodes from the promotional materials and discussions about the fake show. The marketing for Bob's Burgers was so effective that it created artificial nostalgia. People remember watching it as part of their Sunday night routine, but those memories were subtly implanted through clever advertising. Fox was smart. They had Joe Buck promote Bob's Burgers, knowing darn well after the football game you were going to switch over to NBC and watch Sunday Night Football. Fox doesn't even air anything on Sunday nights. They go dark. I know you think The Simpsons is still on. When's the last time you watched The Simpsons? 1994? It's a big hoax. At least The Simpsons did exist at one point. Switch over to Fox tonight around, 9. See what's on. Nothing. These shows' plot lines and characters have seeped into popular culture through memes, merchandise, and discussions, creating the illusion of a source material that doesn't actually exist. The idea of Bob's Burgers has spread as a meme, with people discussing and referencing a show they've never seen, but they believe it must exist because everyone else seems to know about it. There's also the concept of the digital phantom. Proponents of the Bob's Burgers conspiracy theory, like me, will point out to you, in the age of streaming and digital media, it's become impossible to distinguish between shows we've actually watched and those we've just seen discussed online. And then I like this theory. It's the quantum theory. Bob's Burgers exists in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously real and non-existent, until somebody tries to actually watch an episode, at which point the show disappears and doesn't exist. Kind of like Schrodinger's cat, but Bob's Burgers. Anyway, feel free to discuss this in the Facebook group, Daily Comedy News Podcast group. There's no such show. Have you seen it? No. Have you met anyone who's seen it? No. Weird Al is coming back after taking 2 years off touring. Weird Al is embarking on his bigger and weirder tour. He's even playing Madison Square Garden in New York and the Kia Forum in L.A. His last tour was stripped down, this time back to normal, with all the costumes and visuals that fans have come to expect from Weird Al. Wow, I can't believe he's playing stadiums. I saw him in the local theater, which was awesome. I don't know if I would go all the way to Madison Square Garden to see Weird Al, because going to New York City from where I live is a pain in the neck. I won't read the whole thing, but some cities you've heard of: Las Vegas, Boston, Philly, Palmer, Alaska, San Diego, Phoenix, L.A., Nashville. Pretty cool. Hey, remember, John Mulaney is joining that Simon Rich Broadway production, All In, Comedy About Love. Apparently, it's the new trendy thing. Some people have joined Lin-Manuel Miranda. Now, he's not a comedian, but, somebody worth mentioning. Lin will take over for John Mulaney as the lead once Mulaney rotates out. Also part of the second cast will be Jimmy Fallon. Wow. Also, Aidy Bryant, Tim Meadows, and David Cross. Oh, Hank Azaria also rounds out the cast. Wow, that's going to be a thing. Greg Fitzsimmons said, Joe Rogan and I started comedy the same week. We went to Stitch's Comedy Club in Boston the same week and signed up to do 5 minutes. Then he was dating my roommate, so we basically lived in the same apartment when we first started. The show was the Monday night open mic show, and it was called Comedy Hell. The MC, a guy named George McDonald, would get up at the beginning of the show, and his first words were, "Welcome to Comedy Hell, where the pipe dreams of a bunch of comedy bozos can soar as high as the lights on Broadway or crash and burn in a fiery pit known only as Comedy Hell." One night we went out, and Bill Hicks was in town. We'd only be doing comedy a year, but he was probably the biggest influence on both of us. He was just a guy who wasn't going to budge for the crowd. Boston crowds were tough. If they didn't like you, they just shut down. And when they started shutting down on him, he went, "Oh, really? Well, how about this?" And he would drag out abortion jokes, and they started leaving. Mike Cannon's special Traumatized Animal is out today on Chris DiStefano's YouTube channel. Chris is also the special's producer. Taped in April at the New York Comedy Club in Stamford, Connecticut. Traumatized Animal provides an irreverent and honest look at parenting as a millennium father looking to break the chain of generational trauma. In an hour jam-packed with jokes and stories, Mike candidly speaks about his own mental health struggles and love for his child and one on the way, as well as deep dives into his own childhood while breaking down how it has impacted his approach as a father. This is a relentless and refreshingly authentic hour of comedy from a comedian who's ready to launch. Cannon tells the 800-pound gorilla news. This special means a lot to me for a multitude of reasons. I put a tremendous amount of work into the material over the last 2 years, and I think comedically, it's the strongest and most personal hour I've ever put out. I've also managed to make it a family affair. It was produced by my best friend, Chris DiStefano. It's directed by my former podcast producer and collaborator, Nicole Lyons. My wife designed the floral arrangement on stage, and both my sisters performed the original song in the credits. The cast of Veep is hosting a virtual table read in behalf of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin today. The cast will reunite for a table read of the episode Crate, in which Vice President Selena Meyer finds out that the president is stepping down and she'll take his place. Julia told The Hollywood Reporter, "We tried to find an old episode where President Meyer accused immigrants of eating dogs and cats, but back when we were making Veep, that seemed insane and over the top." Staying political, both The Daily Show and Stephen Colbert will air live episodes on the East Coast after the VP debate on October 1st. Both shows did the same thing after the presidential debate that week. Colbert doubled his audience. Michael Ian Black has a Substack. Actually, so do I. I should remember to promote my Substack. It's free. mcdpod.substack.com. Link in the show notes. Mondays, I write about music. Tuesday, I often write about podcasting. Wednesday, I give podcasting recommendations. And then the other days, I write about whatever I want. I really don't write about comedy on there because if I want to talk about comedy, I have this. It's not like I'm anti-comedy, but like it's my outlet for other things. Anyway, check it out. Michael Ian Black has one. I like his a lot. He wrote about going to the dentist and said, if you're one of those people who thinks going to the dentist isn't so bad, ask yourself this. What other doctor gives you presents on the way out? No other doctor does this. Sure, pediatricians give stickers, but no other medical profession has to bribe their clients with actual parting gifts. No other doctor has swag bags. Your eye doctor isn't like, thanks for stopping by. Here's a free pair of sunglasses. No, only dentists do this. Because they know you've been traumatized and they're trying to shut you up. That little bag of mini toothpaste and toothbrushes is their NDA. In fact, there's a good chance they've killed me today for speaking out and going to the dentist today. If I don't make it back, you know why. Liz Mealy is taping her 6th stand-up special. It's called Space Camp at the Bell House in Brooklyn today. Mike Kaplan spoke to Columbus Underground about starting out and said, when I was starting out, I would say I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew write and perform as much as possible, and that's why any idea that I had was precious to me. I'd come up with 1,000 things, and maybe only a couple of them would work, but I didn't know I'd be able to keep coming up with things. I thought any idea was worth something. I'd throw it at the wall to see what stuck. I was more led around by the audience's reaction, and the audience reaction is valuable, but in the beginning, I was more acting jokes than telling jokes. Sort of like, hey, audience, what about this joke? And they're like, shouldn't you be telling us? Through the course of time, I became better and more confident in what I'm doing. I'm excited now that I know that I don't have to just try everything, see what the audience responds to, and head in that direction. I can spend more time delving more deeply into ideas that I want to, that I care about, that I want to share with people, and do my best to attract people to those ideas, rather than throwing ideas to where I think the people are, which is often going to be a losing proposition. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They may like it too. Follow my Substack. It's free. Talked about that already. I host another podcast. It's called 5 Good News Stories. Number 5 Good News Stories. I tell you 5 stories, and they're all kind of happy, smile stories. Guinness records, lost animals coming home, quirky things in the news. There was one about an SUV that wound up on top of a dumpster. I'll cut to the chase there. A construction worker was mad at where somebody parked. If you'd like the program without commercial interruption, there's a link in the show notes that'll tell you how that works. All right, see you tomorrow.